I think the speakers today, all day, have made my job so much easier. I was at a very similar event in Austin, Texas, and I was just telling the organizers how different it feels from the time I landed in Dublin yesterday to now. So thank you for creating the environment for everyone who's here. We're going to talk a lot about environments in a minute. And I think we've been talking about it before. So I wanted to just first pay homage to people of this land and for creating spaces borrowed and organically from here that's enabling us to stand here. So thank you. What I'm going to talk to you about is your favorite subject, you. And how you see yourself, how you see the world, and your relationship to it. And how that impacts the decisions you make, and why that framework, that model, is a bit out of whack. I know because I've been in the seats where you're sitting, and he said 100 plus products. I was part of, was in the team that launched iPhone. I'm responsible for a lot of things that I'll talk about that we are trying to now fix and understand the implications of it. I was also in an innovation lab where I started a 5G lab, and we were trying to figure out these, someone else talked about before, smart cities, smart devices, smart home. It's like, what's so smart about devices? Why are we calling technology smart? Why are we giving up intelligence, calling something artificial intelligence? So there's all these philosophical questions are brewing inside of me because of how I saw myself, how I saw the world, and my relationship to it. So let's look at what the framework looks like. So how many people in here are in love? I know the French table better raise some hands. How many people are in love, in love, in love, in love? How many people do feel loved? They feel they're loved. They feel they're loved. I'm not taking notes. I'm not posting it anywhere. You can be honest. Do you trust the people you love? Do you think the people you love trust you? So, why am I talking about trust and love, and what does that have to do with responsible innovation? A lot of times, we engineers, product people, executive leaders, wherever our title is, are so preoccupied with metrics. Joe gave an answer about, you need that number, you need that dollar. That's one metric. To get a dollar, at what cost? I can grow at many costs. We know that. So if you are driven by a single metric, will you make the right decision? And there was a speaker who talked about how do you measure happiness and all these metrics, and we don't know. The reality is that we act like we know when we don't know, because it's so uncomfortable not to know. I know this because I'm in the Bay Area. We literally create the hype that you all buy, and we're rich for it. We do really well. Thank you. But we don't know a lot of things. Most people sitting in the room know a little bit, and then there's this whole projection of what we know. We made lies and deception industries. We teach it to our children. And then we talk about creating trusted AI, responsible innovation. And yet, we live for happiness, love, trust that are not measurable, that are not fair. We don't even know what the heck it is. This morning, I was feeling really good about myself. By the afternoon, I need coffee. I'm not feeling that great. I'm jittery. Somebody in here needs to go to the bathroom. Somebody needs to return a call. There's so many things in your mind, whether you're looking at me or not. We need a new model that looks at things in a non-binary way and reframing the conversation. So how do we do that? One of the reasons, one of the challenges sitting in the room, people come to me who are all kinds of leaders with all kinds of titles, founders, CXOs, CTOs, investor, a recent grad. I taught a class on responsible innovation at Berkeley, and they're looking for someone else to solve the problem. They want to just create it. They want regulations. They want someone else to create it. But when it comes to redefining transportation, redefining cities, redefining connection and what it means to be yourself, they're ready to create the products, but someone else should have regulation. Some ethicists should be in the room. I was talking about, I got invited to a panel that in Texas, and this is really true. An engineer, a product manager, an ethicist goes to a bar. Alka, will you join? I was like, which one am I? Because I could be all three, And they said, no, you're the ethicist. So we're looking for someone else to take responsibility for the stuff we're creating, yet when it comes to selling it, yet when it comes to collecting data to personalize it, we think of trust differently. And it's very natural because we think we're more trustworthy than we think other people are. And we really, responsibility, as my daughter says, kind of boring. The cost of not taking responsibility. By the way, we take responsibility. I don't know if any job you start or any people you hire, what do you hand them? List of responsibilities. No one likes creating those lists, right? But we all have it, and we check against it during our performance reviews, and we get graded. That's what I call it, performance reviews, or we, create elaborate plans, how I met my responsibility. But we're eroding trust because our view of responsibility is outdated, outmoded, is a cross framework, and needs that reframing. 61% of people are not comfortable with how tech is being made. People don't know when they're using AI or not using AI, or forget about AI. AI is a trendy thing to talk about, or maybe not, and it depends on which circle you're in. But AI sits with something. 5G plus AI plus IoT, your Google voice, all of that, it's embedded in something. So it's part of things we've created. It's layered on this. We don't know, these are the list of concerns. These list of concerns were by insiders. So this is from a roundtable that was held with researchers and tech leaders in the Bay Area, and there were some international researchers there as well. This is what they see inside their organizations with stuff they're making. So this is not just community groups or somebody who's not inside or tribe. They are really concerned, and they want to figure out, how do we fix it? How are we designing the world? They feel a sense of out of whackness, a sense of lack of peace, a sense of burnout, because there's a dissonance between what we are saying publicly and we're doing. So the earlier question you saw, it said, either you go for profit or you go for happiness. How many people answered the question saying, I am for unhappiness, I am for irresponsibility, I would like a terrible future because it's going to give me a lot of money? No one says that. Everyone says they're for responsibility, they're for happiness, and they're making great future. Yet the actions we take, yet what it means to us, yet how we measure it, like love, like trust, is very unique and different. Sometimes even changes over what information we got and what role we got in. I don't know how many of you got promoted and suddenly you were very different. I've been given scripts in my job to tell somebody who was going to be let go. I knew it was BS. And I had a choice to make. So we'll come back to that. How are we designing the world, and how is that designing us? This is a preoccupation, is a reason I took a break from my job at the Innovation Lab in Palo Alto, which is a little town near SF, San Francisco. We just call it the Bay Area because it's just hard to drive. But how is that designing us? I was sitting in those rooms. There was a lack of concern, voice in the social impact, the environmental impact, the stuff that affects us, our children. But let's put that aside, because there was even an environment where people couldn't speak the truth, We weren't allowed, like we were giving this PR and then we were doing something else and we couldn't say what was really going on. We couldn't be honest to our bosses, we couldn't be honest to our colleagues, and it's called competition, it's called keeping intelligence. It's the gap, trust gap. It's literally like someone's telling you, hey, you've got to, deceive. How far do you go? When can you stop deceiving? Where do you show up as yourself? Where do these leaders show up as themselves? No wonder we're all burned out and trying to figure out what's going on because we can't be ourselves at work. And are we fragmented people? Like, do we become someone else when we go to work and then become someone else when we go to home? We're continuous people. Our emotions, our feelings are carrying through. So we might put on a uniform and show up as a particular person, but it's a continuity of ourselves. We have this life. Whatever your belief system is, at least we have this life, and how we show up and how we feel about ourselves in the world and our relationship to us affects all our decisions. What do we need to do? People are asking for it. I have people in my lab who are recent grads who are computer science major, engineering major, who say they don't want to work for those tech companies. I think some of the tech companies are great. I use their products. The culture, the stuff that they're making, they don't want to be responsible for it because it's not clear to them if they can manage it. So people are making those decisions. So we talked earlier about, do people have the right training? I would reverse the question, do you have the right environment and the right products that people want to go train? And then yes, we can talk about access to training. Because we're having burnouts, we're having checkouts, and so you're not maximizing the potential of the employees that you have. How do you do that? How do you get there? When we innovate innovation, I shouldn't have to say responsible innovation. We say we innovate for a better world, for progress. It's just be innovation. But for now, we'll put that in there, just to distinguish it from all the other stuff we're making. NFTs that we're selling, all the things you're going to hear about tomorrow and today, AR, VR, metaverse, they all have a play. They're fun. They're exciting. There's parts of it that are very valuable for certain groups of people in certain application. Over-dependence, over-reliance, not responsible. We put people at the center of technology, innovation, leadership, and because that's what we say matters, because that closes our trust gap. So this is a framework, which is like, if people remember old school, like combination locks, does anybody remember combination locks? Did anybody ever use? One person? Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, 2, 3, few people. Don't want to admit it. That's okay. But it's a lock that you move around, different numbers. I know people know it more. Yeah. Oh yeah, they're nodding now. Oh yeah, that thing. So then you move it around and you get this lock. That was one way. The other was a 3D. So we created an AR, VR of this, where you can enter this experience and figure out for your product what's the right combination of trust, what's the right combination of safety and openness, because what is open and safe for me may not be open and safe for someone else. I was in a meeting of open source meeting. Does everybody know Linux? Yeah, open source meeting. And the person running it wanted to record everything we were saying in a regular meeting about AI and state of AI and ethics, and record it verbatim, transcript, because there's an AI tool for it, and post it, publicly post it. And most of us still worked for companies and had these fancy titles. And, everyone started to feel uncomfortable. And then we finally said, well, if you do that, then we're not going to be honest. Then we have to get our message approved. We can't just say what we think. It's going to change the nature of the discussion. If you're very open, it's very hard to be safe, but they both sound good. Trust and delight sounds really good, but some things are very delightful and fun, can't be trusted because you don't know what's going in the background, and sometimes it's more delightful it is, the more it promises, great offers, the more that someone can hide behind the scenes, we drop our guard. So what is the right combination for games, for media? What's the right combination when it's healthcare? So the requirements change for different people. So the way you approach personalization can be different. I worked with somebody who used AI for education. And we went through it and figured out how can you design it in a way that you still meet many people's needs. We're very used to, look around this room, just look around next to your table. If this group, are we representing the world or even your community? If this group is making decisions about all the people whose pictures Sanders showed, the young people and the young girls and the kids, they're not here. I see a few women, yeah, I do. So who are you representing? Who are you not representing? And you can't be who you're not, but to acknowledge, as the scientist said, disclaimers, I know this is what I can do, these are scenarios I don't cover, breeds a lot more trust than the habitual thing of like the overconfidence of saying, we've got this. We want to sell to everybody, but we don't have time and money to include everyone's concerns. So if we're making big money, to earlier questions, how much of that are we earmarking to understand the impact? To explain it to the public so they trust us? To make it only when it's necessary? Oh, one thing I also wanted to point out in here is that, we talked about this here and there all day. We talked about, every speaker has touched on this. Our environment today is created by us, what we think about ourselves, us and the people around us impact it, the things we use. If you use your devices, if you use a piano, how you structure the environment. If we took this meeting out in the open, outside on the streets, and try to have this gathering and discussion, or if we went in, as earlier, and have this discussion in groups versus someone standing here and talking, it changes the conversation. So in your businesses, in your companies, what kind of environment are you creating? How are you dealing with sustainability? Are you just trying to cover your tracks with zero waste language? Or are you greenwashing it? Or are you really trying to make fundamental changes into your hardware, into your processes? Are you creating products that mimic people and cause mistrust or overhype it? Or are you putting the right technology, the right places, and giving people some options of opting in and out so that they can choose at the different circumstances, or building in features so that people can figure out how they want to use it? So it becomes a tool they can use. A piano, they can play Bach, or they can play some other, Western tune. They can choose what they want to play with the tool, and then we're doing that. So there's many layers in this that we can explore, and then we explore. What it changes is how you see the world. Market laws, norms. It's how you see the world isn't binary. I don't have to do profit, nonprofit. I don't have to make it open or safe. It's multiple scenarios. Is this too hard? We figure out love, we figure out trust, we make those difficult decisions with huge spreadsheets of 50, 60, hundreds of variables, right, for business cases, and we throw out things that don't work. So this is just another set of variables to add in here. So how do we do that? There's 3 things I'll share with you, the top 3 things, and then there's others we can talk about later. Very simple, and people talked about this. See the game very clearly. If you're using a technology, understand it. Make it understandable to other people. A couple things I've been doing with open source is rewriting courses on 5G, AI, edge IoT, data science, all that stuff, so that anyone can understand it. And you know how I figured it out? I watched it in many different languages on YouTube. I heard a young person describe it, an older person describe it, a non-technical person described it, and then I picked the things that really resonated for me. So I did the research so that anyone could understand it. We mystify things that don't need to be mystified. The more that people can see the game behind the game, understand the rules of the game, the more we can understand technologies, the better decisions we'll make. We will not make a binary good-bad. There isn't anything that's always good or always bad. Well, I shouldn't say anything. That's very universal. Most things have nuances. Most things, some things, as we heard before, can be really good for some people in certain scenarios, and not so much. Do people have the flexibility to opt out, or are they those apps that says, if you don't agree to all these cookies, you can't use us? If you don't agree to being recorded, you can't attend this meeting. So how do we create the game? And we know this. We do this at work. So I sit with people, I say, do you see and understand your organizational game? Do you see and understand the technologies you're using? Choose how you want to play the game. You have a choice. So many leaders, I meet CEOs that say, I know what needs to be fixed, but what can I do? I have the board. I'm the founder, but my CTO, I lose him, her, if I make this decision. You always have a choice, and yes, a responsibility, yes, a cost. And there are ways to choose the game without making a big deal about it. Because when you have a framework and you say, I am finding this place in the framework, you're over here thinking about open and trust, then communication can happen. Then the way they see the world, the way you see the world, and yourself shift. So you can pick how you go and how you go, mind how you go. People talk about is, responsible innovation, happiness is, it is. But how? How do we love? How do you trust? How do you show your love to the people you love? Think about that today before you go home, yeah? And be kind, any crazy loves, please, no stalking, I'm not, none of that. All right, you have to say those things these days. Finally, the third thing is know when to take a break. Many speakers have hinted to it, like what is enough? So one of the things I do is I give a survey on success, it's called Success Survey, and a quiz. If anybody wants it, you can send me a note and I'll just send it to you. And one of the questions it asks is, what's your definition of success and what's kind of your limit? It's there in companies, it's there in organizations, it's there personally for you. When do you take a break? And the breaks can actually catapult you. It can be the place where you metamorphosize. If you're busy, doing the same thing again and again. It's really interesting to me. A lot of people come to me and they say, I don't know why people don't see me as a CFO material. I have these great ideas, I care about everything. They're playing the game the same way. And they're wondering why the outcome hasn't changed. Know when to take a break. In that example, when I was asked to be the ethicist, I said, sorry, I don't play that. I don't play the ethicist. I don't even know. I'm not even ethical myself all the time. I don't even know what that means to be ethical in every moment. I have a lot of self-interests and sometimes they compete. So I don't know what that means. I don't play that. And then I've started using that. Somebody comes with a lot of money to me, asks me to do something, endorse something that I don't feel comfortable. I don't have to give them a speech. I don't have to judge them. That never helps. I don't play that. I'm sorry, that's not for me. I don't even say, I'm sorry. It's not for me. I don't play that. I don't play it that way. I see the game. I have like 3 questions. I can, within 3 questions, see most games. And then we go to that. So coming back, putting it all together. Those 3 things I shared with you, it's in the work context because we're right here. But it really applies to you in your social settings, anywhere. If you think about this, you take out responsible innovation, you put me plus we, you put your relationships on there. What do you want? Open, safe, delightful, trustworthy. You've got money to worry about. You've got to worry about the cultural norms and cost, rules and regulations. They can be interpreted in a different way. It's a different model to make decisions and leave room for other people to show up differently, and for you to show up differently at different times, in a different role, different times of the day. So the more we understand ourselves, see the game clearly, the more we see the world more clearly, see that game more clearly, and change the relationship to it, take sort of that power to choose how we play it, and when to take a break, the world starts to feel different. I had to do this to be able to do this work. Because it gets really, if you're fear-based, if you're just looking at the news of what terrible things are happening, you're chasing them, you're reading that, it can really, really reorient your brain. So there's evidence in neuroscience, wherever you pay attention, that's how you grow. I pay attention to hope. I pay attention, I'm an engineer, to solutions. But my solution isn't everyone's solution. And how I'm coming to that solution is after understanding what I'm solving, which is the time, which requires time, which is the time that I have learned to make, and the people who do make different kinds of decisions. So one of the things I really picked sort of the course in here, mystics and neuroscience, and it's a new paradigm, a new framework that's borrowed from the oldest frameworks, is the need for community. For us to change the course, we're looking around to see, well, why isn't that person? How come that person's getting away with it? Well, I don't want to give out, lose out. But if we are in a community, that's making the different kinds of decisions, thinking more nuanced way and thoughtfully, like we are here today, feels very different than when I was in the other place, then it starts to seem normal and effortless and easier to kind of do what we want to do and play the game our way. So we've created a hub for that. We have a leadership program. I've left cards for you, and this is the last thing for you to do is to ask you, while you're still thinking about it, and before you get busy with food and the amazing activities we have planned, which I'm really looking forward to as well, is how will you change this game? And there's two things that you get out of this. There's a QR code that you can scan from here, or your card. Everybody has a card in front of them. And if you're all leaders, there's a thing, how many people use a link tree? I'm not advertising them, but yeah. It's just, there are many other options too. But check this out. It's a new sort of, or newish way that content creators use, like a new business card. So if you put a link on there, you're just gonna get this link tree. And this is just for you to take as a visual reminder, the framework. And if you do that, if you put the link, if you send me an email, or you just go and join the list, or you post something in there, any activity that you take will qualify you to a gift. And the first 3 person who emails me can have 1 free strategy session where we can talk about the framework, or your love life, or trust, whatever you want. And it's all confidential. We call it second opinion, that people can have, because we need places for people to be honest. Not just outing everybody and their frailties, but a place where people can be themselves and be honest. And we're trying to create that, and I hope you'll join me. And I think together, I could see a different kind of future. And because I have a 10-year-old, because I want to go back to making stuff, I really, really invite you to help be part of this movement that's happening. I see it in the Bay Area. More and more people are talking about it. I see it, being invited to these kinds of talks. Something is changing and transforming and metamorphosizing in this world of innovation. Be on the right side of history and join me. I hope you will. Thank you.
Thank you. So, before we try to summarize what we have heard until today, so I asked the scores on my previous question about how important is happiness in the design of your new applications. And it's terrible, but I have to admit that only 8% said it was crucial, 26% said it was very important, so 34% is kind of putting happiness at the core, 66% is not. Were you so as disappointed as I was, or?
No, because I was actually surprised that number is as high as it is.
Okay.
Because, as someone said earlier, a lot of the leaders don't prioritize their own happiness.
So, and you cannot start a fire if it isn't burning inside yourself.
So,
that's what you're saying.
Exactly. So I have a child, and I try to teach her something, and I notice, whatever, I'm like, why is she doing that? Usually, she's just copying me.
So you're standing right on the brink, so don't fall over. So
I think that's why I was saying the 3 things that are important is, first, we have to be very honest and work on ourselves.
But where have we gone wrong? Because when I was listening to you, I had to remind myself of this wonderful paper that Mark Reiser wrote in '95 already around calm technology, right? Where he said, calm technology, that technology that informs but doesn't demand our constant focused attention. And I think, well, it's the late Mark Weiser, but after that we have forgotten it a little bit, that it's not technology that should be at the core, but it's people that just want to go ahead with their day, and now they're spending 600 minutes
so
a
there's
day.
many reasons.
So where did we get lost?
So I would have to retrace the steps. But what I would say, one of the fundamental challenges I see is this compartmentalization, which is what I was talking about. So if you get to know yourself and you have a different framework to get to know yourself, you don't say, oh, I go to work and I'm going to build products that's just driven by engagement so that people are on their devices all the time. And then I'm going to go home and I'm going to turn on and ask my kid to not be on the device all the time. Because who made that? You know, because there you got the raise so you could pay for really good schools and vacations. So there's this whole dissonance that happens, this gap they call leadership, decision-making, you know, gap, because we don't see things clearly, implication of our own actions. But because we're not honoring our own happiness, and we're not thinking about the implication in that way, we're just making a decision by metrics somebody set, which was drive engagement, and you get promoted for it. And we all want to succeed. I mean, I want to give a good speech when I'm out here.
It's rewarding the wrong things. That's
Yes, it's how we reward, how we incent, but also how we choose. Because in this room, these are all powerful people. They're leaders. But when you talk individually, they won't feel powerful because they're doing what someone else is doing. You know, even in transformation or when we talked about innovation, people are like, what is that? What are they doing? What are they doing? What is that person doing? You know, there's such preoccupation for it. Who's going to show up as that leader and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to play this way. And you know, some of the tech companies, I know we bashed them, but some of them became so big because they did things their own way. That's a different conversation.
So there are all powerful people in the room, but they're also tired by now.
Yes.
So that's a dangerous combination. So thank you very much, Alka, for your contribution. Thank you.